Okay, so this is a threading of the standard 301 machine, or a straight stitch machine. And first we'll start and go through the various components of threading. There's a threading post on the top of the machine, and most machines have these guides of some sort. This is the number 1 tension, and we'll go through what they each do as we get there. This is number 2 tension, take up bar, take up eye, take up. This is simply a guide eye. There's a guide eyelet here, what they call a needle bar guide, thread guide, and of course the needle itself. In threading the post is designed with two holes in it. Convention is that both holes are used, and normally both holes are used to take out little turns and twists that come into the thread to make sure that there is no interference between the post and the first tension. We don't want any curls or anything in here to impede the operation of this disc. The threads that that we use now tend to be wound a little different than some of the older threads, so some convention cannot be readily used. We find that this using 2 holes adds tension to the thread right here, and we don't need that to add to our circuit. Most of the time when I'm threading the machine, I'll only use 1 hole. If the thread is particularly twisted and it gets tangled, sometimes we can turn it around the post and still use just 1 hole. From the post, we go to the number 1 tension. Number 1 tension is designed to control the length of the thread after it's been trimmed. The tighter the tension is, the shorter the thread is after it's been trimmed. To thread it, it goes through the eye, around counterclockwise to 45 degrees from here, or 90 degrees from here, and it comes down to the post. From here we go to the number 2 tension. The number 2 tension is the one that controls the tension of the stitch. Again, as we make it tighter, the needle thread gets tighter and pulled tighter into the stitch. The less we make the tension by turning it counterclockwise, the less tension is applied to the stitch. To thread it, we come from first tension, clockwise around the tensions, pull it snugly into it, which I'll do in a moment, and it comes out from there. We go around the take-up spring. Take-up spring, it controls thread while the machine is sewing. It goes onto the take-up bar. Now the take-up bar is there to help produce the tension between the eyelet and the tension bar. It also helps to form the stitch correctly. From the strike pull-off bar, we go to the take-up itself. Take-up has 2 functions. First function is to control the amount of thread being applied to the stitch, because it moves in a reciprocating fashion, moves up and down. It also pulls the thread from the comb. From the take-up, we go to a guide eyelet. It simply keeps it from rubbing up against the casting in the machine. We go to this a second guide, which helps guide it in, which is not done on this machine right at the moment. It goes from here to guide it into the needle bar eyelet. From the needle bar eyelet, we go to the needle, and the needle again we've already seen from our needle presentation, is that the thread is always threaded on the other side of the scarf. The scarf on this machine is on this side, so we thread it left to right. So we'll try all that. We'll take this thread out and we'll actually thread it all through. Since it was already threaded with through the 2 holes, I'm going to do it again that way because it is a production machine that was obviously done that way for a reason. So again, through the top one, through the second one, through like that. So we have this twist in the thread. And the first tension, through the first eyelet, and again we go counterclockwise through this one. Now I pull it tight, hold it on either side, just give it a little pull and it'll sink down in between the discs. And come down to the first tension. Now, a little bit of question comes in as to whether this thread has to be in this eyelet. And no, it doesn't. We will sometimes put it inside there if this particular thread, some of the nylons want to work their way out of the tension, and we'll put it in there just to keep it in there. At this point, I'm not going to do that because I'm trying to do conventional threading. So again, we come down to the first tension, we come around the tension, counter or clockwise, and up past to our thread again. We'll come from there into the take-up spring and around the bar through this way. From there, it goes to the take-up eyelet, and this one has to be there. If it is not there, the stitch is not tensed properly. And no matter how much you try and change this, the tension on your stitch will not be correct. To take the end, again, we go through the take-up. Through the take-up. Just give it a pull through so we have enough. We come around the eyelet, and they're in a curl, so we can get them in there relatively easy. This one is the same way. It's a nice little curl goes through. I'm going to lower that needle bar just a little bit so we can see it a little better. Thread goes through the eyelet. And because my fingers are really big, I'm going to use a pair of tweezers to thread this. And try and thread it so we can actually see it. So I'm going to thread it. Thread tends to fray on the very end the more you work with it. So a new end there it is. So then the end goes through the needle's eye and pull it out so it's straight. That's how we thread the machine. That's a basic threading for a 301 or a straight stitch machine.